right, we started recording. So just for our recording, I'm Kate Gibbings. I'm the engineering librarian at Ontario Tech. If you have any questions throughout this workshop, please ask them in the chat, or if you'd like to turn on your audio and ask a question that way, you're very welcome to. You can always interrupt me, whatever I'm talking about, and I will pause and ask if there are any questions as well. So this is what we're talking about in this workshop. What can the library do for you? Accessing library resources, types of information and where to find it, search tools, and citation help. And I've chosen things that I think are really helpful either at the beginning of a program or just at the beginning of the year. There's a lot of times I will visit a class, maybe the students are in second year or third year, and sometimes they say, I wish I would have known this in first year or when at the beginning of the year. So I think it's really great that you're here today. And just as a little bit of an introduction, what can the library do for you? Access to books and ebooks, some textbooks. I'll talk more about textbooks in a moment. Articles and other types of information. Study spaces. We are open, as you may have heard. We have the limits on how many people can come in the library is quite a bit different than it would be in normal times. So I think it's around 150 people we can let into the library at a time. And the space is set up so that it's marked where you can sit and where you can't sit to help people social distance. We have equipment loans is one example of different kinds of services that we have. So you can borrow phone chargers. There are laptop loans available. That's run by IT services, but you can get them in the library. Whiteboard markers, that type of thing. We have a lot of guides on our website that will recommend information resources for your program. I'll show you where to find that. We have citation guides, which I'll show you as well. And we have a lot of ways for you to get help. So there's email, there's a live chat service on our library website. You can book online appointments, and you can just walk in the library and get help at the help desk. I'll come back to that as well. We answer all kinds of questions in the library. I just have a few examples here just to give you an idea of the questions that might come up for you. So one might be, do you have this book or article? It might be as simple as that. You want to know if we have your textbook. You want to know this article that your professor said you should read. How do I get to it? You can contact us and ask a question like that. I need information for an assignment. Where should I search? I've been trying to find information for this topic, but I haven't found much. Can you help me? So maybe you've started, you found a few things, but you really need more. That's something that we can help you with. How do I cite this book or article or website or whatever it may be? We can't write the citation for you, but we can point you to an example that will help you do that citation. And my professor said I need a scholarly article. Is this one scholarly? So I'm going to talk about finding scholarly articles. Or is this a good website to use for my assignment? Will my professor think that this is a high quality website? Those are just a few examples of questions that you might have. So I have this slide at the end as well, and I'm going to make sure everybody gets access to these slides. So all the links will be there for you. You can email us, library@ontariotech.ca. You can use our chat service, which when we take a look at the website, I'll show you where that is, right on the home page. And you can also, you may not know, but there's a librarian for every faculty. I mentioned I'm the librarian for Faculty of Engineering and Applied Science. So you're also welcome to email your librarian, and we're happy to answer any kind of question that you might have. All right, so let's get into it. We're going to start with accessing library resources. And for online library resources, you can access them from anywhere, on campus, off campus. If you're in another country, there shouldn't be any difference in how you access it. So I'll show you how to do this, but for online resources, you want to search from the library homepage. Our main search tool is called Omni Search. You're going to choose a resource like an article or an ebook, and then you'll be asked to log in at that point. So let's take a look at this really quickly, just in case, especially those of you who said you're in first year, You probably haven't had a reason yet to go to the library website. And I'm going to search for a topic on animal therapy with mental health. Takes me into our Omni search tool. So sorry, that was a little bit fast, but that was from our library homepage, which is ontariotechview.ca/library. And I'll just pick one of these. Most of them are online resources. And it's going to show me view online. So sometimes there's more than one link here. Doesn't really matter which one you choose. And at this point, this is where you get asked to log in. So it's going to be your student number and your network password. And this is the same password that you use for your Ontario Tech email and Canvas. So you can search without logging in. It's only going to ask you to log in once you actually find something that you want. And here now it has taken us to, this was the paper I chose, and now I can view the PDF. So the slides that you have access to, they just show you what I just did there. Sometimes you're going to be searching for information, and maybe through Google or through Google Scholar, or your professor recommends an article to you, but you can't seem to get access to it. So for example, this one says purchase PDF, and it says access through your institution, but if I click on that button, that's actually not going to work. So what you want to do at this point is, because the problem here is that we didn't connect through the library yet. So I'm just going to copy this title of this article. I'm going to copy and paste that into the Omni search that I just showed you. You could always add an author's name or something, but often the title is enough. And then we're going to see if we have it. And in this case, we do. So again, we're just going to click on that, what it found there, and get connected to that article. For borrowing all the print books that are in the library or anything else that's physical item in the library, you want to use your digital or your physical Ontario Tech U card. Most books will check out for 120 days. But if someone else requests the book that you have, you will get an email asking you to return it in 7 days. However, if someone else has the book that you want, you can request it, and then they will have to return it in 7 days. But I think most of the time, if you check out a book, you'll probably get to keep it for that full length of time. Your professors also may put a textbook or something else on course reserve. And when they do that, they want to make sure that lots of students can access it. So that's just going to be checked out for 1 or 3 days. So you will find some that are, very short. And one more thing about accessing library resources, just because we don't have it doesn't mean we can't get it for you. So if there was a book you needed or an article, I think some of you are graduate students, it may be really important for you to get access to, I don't know, a technical paper or a standard or something like that. We can get things from other universities. So I have some links here for that. If you're ever interested in that, you can also just email me and I can help you with this. As long as it's not a full book, it's just going to get emailed to you. If it is a book, it's going to have to come through the mail. And also, we might just end up buying it for you. If it's something that really should be in the library, we just don't have it yet. So keep that in mind. You can always, students will sometimes email me saying, could we buy this book? And then we can buy it. All right, so if you have any questions about that, feel free to put them in the chat. But I'm going to move on to our next section, which is, let's see, I think we do have a question. We want a paper that exists in IEEE, but we can't find it. Where can we find that? Okay, that's a great question. Because actually for IEEE, which is the most popular database for engineers, we pretty much have everything. So let's see, let's try this one as an example, see if we can find it. Okay, we're going to go to, let's go to the Omni search. And I'm just copying and pasting that title in here. Okay, so it's not coming up as the first option. Okay, so in this case, it's not coming up right away, which is probably, Sarah, what you found already. So I'm going to show you something else. This is the library homepage, and we're going to go to databases A to Z. Very helpful if you already know what database you want to search. Your professor may tell you to search one of these. So let's go into IEEE Explorer and see if we can find it that way. Okay, so we at least have found it. When we click on it, let's see, PDF. Yes, okay, so that worked. I can't tell you why it didn't come up very easily in Omni. Usually it does, but not always. So in this case, at least we know what database it was from. And if you are ever having trouble with that, again, do not hesitate to email me, or the chat service on the library homepage is also could help you probably connect to that as well. All right. So if you think of any more questions, keep putting them in the chat, but I'll keep going. Types of information. I have some varieties here. I'm keeping on with that topic of using animals for therapy with mental health. So we've got a book over here. We've got some different kinds of articles. And I wanted to make a few comments about some things your professors might ask for in an assignment. So for some assignments, you might be asked to find articles and maybe books that are scholarly or peer-reviewed. So we'll talk about what that is and how to find that. And also, when you use information from websites, they will expect that you're going to choose websites that are reliable and trustworthy. So, when you are Google searching, you can look at things like who published that website. Do they seem reliable? Can you figure out sort of where they might have gotten their information from? What purpose is this website? Is it sales? Is it to entertain you? Does it have a lot of political views? Is it just for education, which might be the best case? So just thinking about that. And I'm going to look at two types of, look at books, articles, and then a couple more in a very quick way. So we're talking about textbooks. A lot of times people ask, do you have textbooks for my course? Sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. It's definitely a great idea to check. You can look up the title in our Omni search tool. A lot of the textbooks we have are print paper copies. And I know it's not as convenient for students, especially right now. You can usually borrow them. Actually, well, it depends. If your professor put it on reserve, maybe 1 or 3 days. If they didn't, then maybe 120 days if no one else asks for it. And people wonder, why don't we just buy all the textbooks as ebooks? The problem is that the major textbook publishers, a lot of them don't want to sell ebooks, textbooks to libraries because they can make more money selling to 40 students in a class. If we buy the ebook and 40 students borrow it, they're not getting as much money. So if we can buy it as an ebook, we will, but sometimes the only way we can get it is in paper. And then just regular books, if you're just starting out looking up a topic, this might be a great place to start because you're might get more of an introduction to your topic. We'll come back to that in a moment. And, if you're wondering if a book is scholarly or not, because your professor said you need a scholarly information, a lot of the books of the Ontario Tech Library are scholarly. So you would find books through the library's Omni search. And you can see a bit of a variety here from the textbook. I think everyone is probably familiar with what a textbook looks like. A book that covers the topic pretty broadly. So if we're talking about environmental law here, this one's called Compliance and Enforcement of Environmental Law. If you're just starting to learn about environmental law for an assignment, this might be a good place to start. But you'll also find books that cover a topic very narrowly. So this one is just about European water law. So you'll find both kind of books in the library. Now let's get into that question of if something is a scholarly source, if you're told that's what you need. So a scholarly source is going to have very in-depth research. Either someone did their own research or they have analyzed other people's research. Oh, and I'm seeing a question here. Do we have access to assignments of older year students? Unfortunately, not through the library. Trying to think. I think that's usually your professor's decision if they have kept any examples that you might be able to look at. But yeah, usually definitely not through the library. If you're a graduate student and you wanted to see other graduate students' theses or dissertations, we do have an online collection of that through the library. So if you're interested in seeing that, I can send you a link. All right, and Sarah's looking for. Okay, so actually this is another good way. Sarah has a question about Omni search again, and this is kind of an interesting thing as well. I'm going to copy your book title again, Sarah, and we will go find our Omni search again. So we're going to copy the title of that book into Omni like you did. Okay, I think this is the one. Or maybe this one. That's an article. Okay, actually, let me show you something here too that I was going to show you later, but this is better right now. When you're searching Omni, you might get a lot of results and you're trying to find the one that you're really most interested in. The filters are all on the left. So for example, if I knew I only wanted things that are online because I'm at home, if I know I only want peer-reviewed journals because my professor said that's what I'm supposed to use, or if I know that I want a book, under resource type, we can choose books and ebooks. Or you could choose articles or something else. Okay, so I think this is the book. It's an older one, but oh, we do have a copy of this one, but let's see what Sarah said there. Well, okay, so I wonder if Sarah might have been looking for a newer edition, because that one that we were just looking at is a bit older. So if you see get it from another library, sometimes it's going to ask you to sign in. This is another way to, what it says, get it from another university library. So if you were to click on that button and it says that it's at Western, you can start the process to have that book delivered to Ontario Tech for you. We have two different ways of doing this. One is sort of the old way and one is the new way. Both of them work. So yeah, if you see that as an option, go ahead and use it if you want to. All right. Okay, so any follow-up questions about that? Let me know in the chat. Oh no, Sarah, that's great. I like interruptions because some of this stuff we get to, but it's better if it comes from a real question instead of one of my made-up examples. So scholarly sources. I'm going to give you guys in a moment a question where I'm going to show you 3 sources, and I'm going to ask you to guess if it's scholarly or not. It's okay if you get the wrong answer. I just want us to look at some examples. So, but what is scholarly? You have in-depth research. It's written for other researchers, professors, students, professionals, people who need that research. The language and the vocabulary are more advanced. So if you're trying to read a science article and you don't really have a background in science, it might be a bit difficult to understand. If you have some background in science, it's going to be easier. These sources are usually longer. They're mostly text. They don't have too many images unless they're diagrams and charts. They're definitely not images that are just there to look pretty. They're images that have a purpose. And they should include a reference list that shows all the sources that this person used in their research. Another way to think about scholarly sources is if you know something is a journal article or a conference paper, it is scholarly. But if something is a magazine or a newspaper article or a trade magazine, which is meant for people who are doing a specific kind of job, or like a website post, then it is not scholarly. Now, that doesn't mean it wouldn't be good in an assignment. It might be really great for an assignment, but if your professor said use scholarly, you have to stick to the things that are scholarly. So let's give this a try. I'm going to share another Google form with you in the chat. Okay, and I've seen some questions, so let's do that first. Do you have articles, academic journal articles, magazine? Yes. So one place, if you search Omni, you're going to see a lot of articles. Some will be journal articles. Actually, a lot will be. You will also see some magazine articles. I'm going to mention briefly library databases as well. You'll find articles there too. Like we just searched a database, IEEE, that's filled with all kinds of articles. How do we know if a website is reliable and professionally acceptable? I don't go into a lot of detail with this question in this workshop, just because we have so much to cover. But I think I do have an example coming up in a moment. So I'm going to answer that in a few slides when we get to that example. So I will come back to that in Nojin. Thank you. Okay, so the link I've just put in the chat is let me show you what I've just shared with you right here. It is 3 sources. I haven't given you the whole thing. I've just taken a picture of part of it. So we've got this first one, and we've got a second one here. These are all about animal therapy and mental health. And then we have a third source here. And for each one, I just want you to answer, do you think this is a scholarly source? Yes or no? Again, don't worry if you get this wrong, because at this point, we're kind of guessing. I haven't given you the whole thing to look at. And once we're done, I will show you some more clues that will help you know if it is scholarly or not. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to try that one out. So I am seeing answers come into that form. Thank you for sharing that again. And we've got about 9 responses right now, which is pretty good. So I'll give you another minute, and then we can look at what were the clues about whether these might be scholarly or not. All right, let's take a look at this. So the first one, let's see what people were guessing here. Everyone who answered said, yes, this is scholarly. If anyone wants to say any reason in the chat why you thought this was scholarly, you can type that in there if you want to. But definitely some of the things I was talking about where it's a lot of text, not so much images. We do have a bit of a summary at the beginning here that describes what's going to be in the article. You can't tell from this if there is a reference list or not. I didn't let you see that, so that's not a clue you were able to look at. But it does say Journal of Gerontology. So that's, we can see that is a journal. Not every journal has the word journal in the title, but this one is easy to see that it is a journal. And even if you notice that there's volume and an issue, this case it says volume 57A, number 7. You see something like that, it's a journal. So those are ways we know this is a scholarly source. Now this one, that's next. Let's see what people were guessing for this. More people said that this is not a scholarly source. So let's take a closer look at this one. If you knew that The Guardian is a newspaper, then that's a good clue. But even if you didn't, you can see sort of news, opinion, sport. That's not really what a journal would have. That's more like a magazine or a newspaper. We do have an image here that's just an image to look nice. So those are some clues that this is probably not a scholarly source. And then for the last one, we had a bit of a split between yes and no. So this was a harder one. Let's take a close look at this. And I think especially because this is not a PDF, this is just something I copied from the website. It does have more text. It does have the abstract, which is a summary of the article. Those are both clues that it could be scholarly. And the text here is really small, but it does have a conference title. So it's quite long, Proceedings of the 30th Australian Conference on Computer-Human Interaction. The fact that it's a conference and this is an article in a conference, that will also tell us that this is scholarly. So thank you for trying that out. Let's look at a little bit more closely at that, and then we're going to move on. Just before I give you a few more examples of scholarly, peer review. You might also get asked to use peer-reviewed articles. So this is very similar to scholarly. They're almost the same. A peer-reviewed article is published in a peer-reviewed journal, which is most journals, and a peer-reviewed conferences, which is most conferences. So as long as you find a journal or a conference, you should be fine. It's probably peer-reviewed. And what this is the journal or the conference, they get experts in the subject to review the article or the paper before it's published. As long as the experts all agree that this is high quality research, it's valuable research, then it will get published. So there's a video there if you're interested in more about peer review. And so just looking again closely at a journal article, this is the same one we just looked at. I was pointing out that there's a journal title, there's a year, there's a volume, there's an issue. A lot of times you'll see the authors, what university they work at is often there. And I mentioned the abstract, which is a summary of the article. And a conference paper, you're going to see some of those same things that we just saw. Like I said, the conference name should be there. Now, here's an example. We didn't look at this one before. If you were searching online, now, so we had that question a moment ago from Nojin. And so this was one example I was going to use. If we take a look at what are we actually looking at here? This is called EMS World. So EMS would be emergency medical services like paramedics. We see the word magazine, so we start to understand that this is a magazine. And this is actually a magazine for people who work as paramedics or similar. Because it's a magazine, we know that it's not scholarly. It's not a journal, it's not a conference. It still could be a good source, though, if your professor hasn't said that you have to use scholarly sources. And, you know, if you're asking, is this a reliable professional source? Well, we can see who published this. And we have an author name here. We can see this author looks like whatever MHS and NRP means. That probably means that, you know, they have the right education. Elizabeth Tate, PhD. Sometimes you can see a little bit about the authors and you see that they actually know about this topic, and that this is probably a reliable magazine. If we do a Google search really quickly, you're welcome to do this as well with maybe a similar topic, animal therapy, mental health. Maybe if we just look at some of these results, sometimes what Google will show you, first of all, is the scholarly articles. And this is going to take you to Google Scholar, which I'm going to talk about Google Scholar in a moment. For our first, we've got a website, Medical News Today. We could take a look at that. Maybe this was another one I wanted to show you. Let's look at these two, actually. So I found just through Google searching, I found this information about pet therapy. One thing I can look at here is it doesn't actually give me the name of an author, but I see this is from the Mayo Clinic. So I could look up what is the Mayo Clinic, and I would find out that it's a hospital, that they do research. That sounds pretty reliable. If I go here to Medical News Today, what is Medical News Today? They don't give me an author's name. Wait, yes, they do. And this person looks like they do whatever DVM MPH means. I could find out more about this author. They look like they might have a background in medicine, so I'm starting to feel like I might trust this source. Might be nice to know what Medical News Today is. But yeah, if you find yourself on a website, you can't tell who wrote it. You can't tell really what kind of website this is. You can't tell where they got their information. That probably might not be a reliable website or not good enough to use in your academic paper. All right, and then a few other kinds of information. Reports can be really good too, that you might find through Google searching, because reports can be published by the government, by organizations, by companies, and you can find those in the library's Omni search as well. Of course, many kinds of websites. Some are not so good, some are good. I know we haven't talked about this a lot in this workshop, and just for the sake of time, I won't go too much more into that. But if you have more questions about which websites are good, get in contact with your subject librarian. We can help with that. Statistics, maybe you might need that someday. You could find those on government websites, on other websites, in reports. So there's lots of places to find statistics. And now, so we have two topics left to cover in this workshop. One, I want to show you a couple of the search tools. We've already looked at OmniSearch a little bit, so we don't need to spend too much more time with that, I don't think. I do want to show you a library database, and I want to talk about Google Scholar. And particularly with Google Scholar, I want to show you because how many people use Google Scholar now? I'm going to put the link to it in the chat. For those who do use Google Scholar already, you are probably used to finding articles that are free. And I also want to show you how to connect to articles that the library has paid for, if you don't already know how to do that. And then our last section is going to be the citation help. So The Omni search, again, we kind of did this already, so I'm not going to go to the live search. I'm just going to show you the slides. We do a search like animal therapy and mental health. We were talking about, where to find articles. Well, look at this first result here. This is an article. It's from a journal that's called Nature. I can see volume 518, so that is another clue to me that this is a journal, if I wasn't sure that if Nature is a journal or not. It also has a little icon here that says peer-reviewed. So this is something that's nice about OmniSearch. It's going to show you when it is peer-reviewed. And I've actually selected on the left here a filter that I just want peer-reviewed journals in this search. So if that's something you think you need, Omni is great for that. Some other filters in Omni, I believe I've already showed you these. I didn't mention the publication date. So all of these search tools, something you can filter in all of them is the date. In this case, I thought I'm going to let my research go back to 2015. Sometimes you want something that's just a few years old. Sometimes it's okay to go back, 10 years, 5 years. So don't forget to make a change to that date range if you need something more current. And we also looked at this a little bit earlier when I was showing how to get to IEEE Explore. But I showed it to you in a slightly different place. But if you need to go past OmniSearch, let's say you need a database that is, if you're in engineering, you need it to be an engineering database. If you're in business, you really need to search a business database. There's two ways to find good databases. One is by looking at research guides, and the other is by looking at our full database list. So research guides, I'll share this link in the chat. Okay, one person using Google Scholar. And we can take a look at this quickly. So there is a guide for each faculty. I think what did I look at in the example? Health sciences. And I'm going to choose just the regular health sciences guide in this case. And in the slides, I have an example where we would search the database PubMed. So that's one way that I found my way to it. If you were in Faculty of Science, let's say, I think someone said they were in the forensic science, go to the guide for forensic science and see what databases are listed there, and then pick one. So the Health Sciences Research Guide, we just saw that. And here's my sample search in PubMed, the same search that I've been using. And all these databases are going to look different, but what you'll almost always see on the left is the filters. So once you've actually started your search, I wanted to go back to 2010 with this search. That's what I selected here. And every database is going to have different filters too. So this one is useful because it's for health. For example, I could choose what age I'm interested in. So I'm interested in mental health, but if I'm just interested in children, this is going to make it easier to just find the articles that are about that age group. All right, so for the sake of time, that's all I'm going to say about library databases. You'll probably hear more about that in your classes if you do have a research assignment that needs that. But let's look at Google Scholar. And I already shared the link to Google Scholar in the chat. Why search Google Scholar? It's so big. It's really the biggest collection of articles you could find. You can find scholarly articles there. It's easy to search. And you can actually create citations in APA and MLA. Sometimes even when I find something somewhere else and I want to get a quick APA citation, I will look it up in Google Scholar just for that. Again, I said I'm going to show you how to connect Google Scholar to your Ontario Tech library resources. If Google Scholar is so great, why would you search a database? Well, I'm not going to read all this, but you get a lot of the same things you get from Google Scholar, but you can also often search for peer-reviewed articles only, which can be useful. And a lot of times the database just focuses on one subject. So, you know, if you need articles that are focused on engineering, sometimes it's nice to go to a database that is just going to have articles about engineering. So here's a search in Google Scholar for animal therapy and mental health. And you can see that I can pick a date range here as well. So 2015, I'm going to go back to 2015 all the way up to the present. That's about it for filters in Google Scholar, not too many options here. And let's actually go into Google Scholar. And we will.
Kate, oh, perfect. Never mind.
I lost track of it there, didn't I? Thank you. That usually happens to me once. Thanks everybody for pointing that out. It usually happens to me at least once per session, unfortunately. Okay, so Google Scholar, animal therapy, mental health. Let's just go back to 2017 here. Now, I'm actually already connected to Ontario Tech, which if you're searching Google Scholar right now, you might not be. So you're seeing all the free papers, which are here. But let's say, for example, this is the article I want. There is no free copy here. But once I connect to Ontario Tech, I can actually use the full text link to see if we have it. And in this case, we do. And I'm just going to connect to it the same way that we've been doing it the whole time. Let's see if we can get back there. Yeah, okay. So let me show you how to do this. And this is in the slides, just in case you forget how to do it. So we're going to go to Settings in Google Scholar. And in Settings, we'll go to Library Links. If you look at this, you probably aren't seeing Ontario Tech University. So you would want to search for that. And then once you see it there, you just check that box and save. And now these links should start showing up. So if there's a free copy, it doesn't matter as much, but when there is no free copy, that's when you really want these links. Even if this wasn't showing up, I can still always search this title in Omni Search to see if we have it. Okay, so like I said, oh, and the citation. Actually, let's go back. If I want to cite this source, it's the quotation mark icon, and I have some options here like APA and MLA where I could get that citation. Unfortunately, they don't have IEEE, but other places you could find other search tools would maybe give you an IEEE citation. All right. Okay, so we just have about 10 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we do talk about the citation help. So if you have any questions about anything I've said, feel free to put them in the chat. Let me show you some citation help guides and tools. And let's take a closer look at this. So I just copied here an example of a reference list in APA, which is what you might be trying to create, or maybe in a different citation style. This does relate to academic integrity and avoiding plagiarism, which I'm sure you'll hear a lot about at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of your courses, because this is one of the ways that you give credit for the ideas and the information you use from other people. So if you have a citation, but it's missing important information, your professor is not going to be able to find that paper or website or whatever it may be that you used. So just a tip, as you are doing some searching, this happens to me a lot and it's very annoying. I'm Google searching on a topic, I find some information that's good, I take a couple notes down, and then later when I'm realizing I want to use those notes, I can't find that website again and where I got this information from. So it can take more time, but as you go along, don't forget to save links to the things that you're finding, maybe even more details than that, so that you don't lose track of it. We have a library citation guide, which I will show you here. I'll put this in the chat as well in case you want to take a look. Okay, we had a question. Sometimes professors talk about manuscripts. Are they similar to papers? Good question. I don't know if I'm sure always what they would mean by that. It's not something I hear too often. It could mean papers. I don't think it would usually mean books. Yeah, I'm afraid without a little bit more information, I don't want to give the wrong answer to that one. So I don't know. I can always look into that after this workshop, Sarah, if you're still interested. So this citation guide, we have the most common ones that students are interested in are the APA style guide and the MLA. I do have one here for IEEE, although IEEE, the reference guide is available for free online. So instead of using our guide, you could just go to IEEE's guide and find lots of examples there, which I have linked to here. The APA guide, which is probably the most common one that's used, what you're going to find here is a lot of examples for each kind of thing you might want to cite, whether it's a book chapter, a conference, a website, maybe a tweet you need to cite, things like that. So this is helpful, and if you ask us a question about citation, we're probably going to show you an example from in here that will help you write that citation. So that's what I have in these slides. Like a question I get sometimes is, how do I cite my lecture notes? Well, I'm going to go look for that in our APA guide, and I'm going to show you this example, and we'll talk about how do you make what you have sort of fit with this example. You can use these search tools to create citations. So you can do that in Omni search. We already looked at this in Google Scholar and in the library databases. So for example, we saw that IEEE database. You can create an IEEE citation there. Maybe we should take a quick look at Omni. Here was that book that we had before. You'll see a little quotation mark icon here as well. And I'm going to pick APA. And I can get a citation here as well. For all of these, make sure you double check the citation, that it looks right. They don't always come out perfectly from these tools. Are there any other citation tools that you use that you could share with other people who are attending this workshop? So I have one example here called ZoteroBib, and this is useful for some things. And like I find this pretty good for citing articles. Something I like about this is it doesn't have ads popping up all over it. It does cite in IEEE if you choose that, which is very useful. A lot of the citations, so a lot of times people will talk about, I'm going to bring up another example here. There's a lot of citation generator tools that look like this, and you can create a citation by looking up the article that you're trying to cite, or maybe the book. There is a lot of ads, there's a lot of clicking to make it happen. And I think sometimes you get directed to something where it's trying to ask you to pay for something. So, but these do still work. I don't know if, again, like, oh, Mendeley. Okay, so, and yeah, that's probably a good thing to mention as well, just as we're finishing up here. The citation tools we've just been looking at are a way to, you know, you've got your article, you've got your book, and you're going to click a button and try to get that citation that you can copy into your reference list, which you want to check. Another thing you can do, and I'm going to share a link here that's not in the slides, is we have citation management tools. So here. I'm going to give you this link. We have some information about this on our library website. Sarah has mentioned Mendeley. You may have heard of Zotero. We also have EndNote at Ontario Tech. And what these tools do is you set up, you install them, and then as you find sources, you add them to your library, and then you kind of connect this to your Word, and as you're typing your paper, you bring in those citations. So this takes more time to set up. If you're in first year, you may not find it worthwhile to get started with a citation management tool like this, or maybe you do. That's up to you. If it is something you're interested in, this is also something you can contact the library about for a bit of help in getting started. Sometimes we have workshops running on some of these tools. So that's something to keep in mind, or even in the future, if you think that might be useful. And I know we're coming to the end of our time, so I'm going to wrap up. We can help you with citation in the library, like I said, we're probably going to show you an example so you can help you write it yourself. I have a slide here for student learning. They're writing specialists if you wanted to make an appointment.
Kate,
yeah.
Sorry, do you mind sharing the slide?
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you very much. Yes. So student learning, if you want more help with citation, where you actually want someone to maybe take a look at your reference list or walk you through it a bit more, you can make an appointment with them. They do workshops as well. And now I'm going to finish up. I'm right at the end of our time. So I wanted to say this again, that the same slide you saw before, email our live chat service. Just look for this Ask a Librarian button when the chat service is open, or contact your subject specialist librarian. And, oops, wait a minute. There we go. Darcy, did you want to talk about these contact links?
Sure, I can quickly do this. To contact your international student advisors, that's myself, Darcy, or Ashley. You can either email us or book appointment with us through the Student Life portal. And to contact us, if you have any general inquiries, feel free to email us at iss@ontariotech.ca. If you have any inquiries about traveling or quarantine, we have a separate email for that, and that's at internationalarrivals@ontariotech.ca. And lastly, if you haven't already, please join our Facebook group. It's called Ontario Tech International Student Community. There's just 3 requirements. You need to make sure you share your full name, your student ID, and agree to all the terms to be allowed into the room. I'd like to thank Kate for joining us today and sharing this wonderful, informative presentation. So thank you, Kate, for taking the time and doing this for international students. I'm sure a lot of people would agree that it was very informative. If I'm not mistaken, I think Kate also has a feedback form. Perfect, right on time, for all of you. So if you want to take that time to share your thoughts and feedback to Kate, that would be greatly appreciated.
Yes, I'll let everyone go because I'm sure you got places to get to, but thank you so much, everyone, for your attention and participation today. And I hope to hear from some of you in the future. Have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Perfect. It's still recording. I don't know if you wanted to stop that.